Welcome to Watch Monopoly. As you know, I make real-life stories and history into short videos. But there are some stories and mysteries that need more than 60 seconds to cover. So welcome to the deep dives. To kick off this series, I wasn't going to start off simple. Let's tackle one of the most famous missing persons cases in history that had conspiracy theorists in a frenzy since 1961. You have already seen the title of the video, and for those that are already familiar with this story, strap in, because I guarantee the more recent developments in this case will be new to you. It's only fair to start from the beginning, and for those unaware of the story, this is the story of Michael Rockefeller, son of New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller, and Michael himself was the great-grandson of John D. Rockefeller, one of the richest people to ever live. Michael went to Harvard to study politics, but shortly after he realized his passions laid more in art than they did in studying politics, specifically that of ancient or tribal art forms. To add to the fuel of Michael's interests in art, Michael's dad had already opened the Museum of Primitive Art that contained things like Aztec and Mayan sculptures, and this fascinated Michael enough to want to join expeditions with anthropologists. Michael chose to journey to the country that at the time was known as Dutch New Guinea and now known as Papua New Guinea. He hoped to meet a newfound group of people known as the Asmat people and bring their art back to the United States. In the 1960s, the Asmat tribe had only recently been introduced to people from the industrialized world. The problem with showing up to a tribe that has very little knowledge of anything outside of their island and believes anything from off the island is a spirit of some form. So any previous contact made by Dutch or British sailors, they assumed them to be spirits. This goes to show just how alien Michael's traditions were from the people of the island. When Michael arrived in New Guinea, he first visited a village known as Otsyanep. After arriving at the village, the people told Michael they could take pictures of them, but he cannot take any of the artwork he has found back home. It's there with the full expedition crew. Michael took several pictures with them, and everything seemed to be going fine. From Michael's writings, it seems he was very understanding of the fact they wouldn't let him have any of their art to take back home, as they was still weary of outsiders. Several of the diary entries he wrote while he was over there, he talked about how fascinated with the people and how much he enjoyed being there rather than back home. So shortly after returning home, Michael gathered another anthropologist and returned back to the island in 1961. This is where, on the 19th of November, that a strong wind caused the currents of the waters around the island to become very thrashy, enough to capsize the small boat Michael, the anthropologist, and two other guides were in. The issue with this boat being so small, it didn't have a radio or any other communication device for that matter, so their only option was to wait by the boat and ride out the storm. After around 24 hours, Michael figured the chances of anyone passing by and saving them was slim to none, so took the choice in strapping 2 empty gas canisters around his waist and making a swim to shore. Keep in mind, shore was around 12 miles away. The last documented words Michael ever spoke to someone was when he turned to the anthropologist and said, "I think I can make it," then jumped into the water to never be seen again. Tragically, only 12 hours after Michael left, a passing boat managed to spot the 3 remaining people and came to their rescue. Except when the rescue boat went to look for Michael, he was nowhere to be found. This sparked a massive manhunt because he's part of one of the most prestigious families in America. For the next 2 weeks, a series of boats, helicopters, and anything else you could think of combed through every part of the jungle looking for Michael. On top of the entire military hired by the Rockefellers to find their son, they also offered $250,000 reward open to anyone that could find him. Due to this being mostly uncharted jungle and 12 miles of sea full of sharks and crocodiles, the chances were pretty slim. After a 14-day manhunt, Michael was declared dead with the cause of death being drowning. Officially, that's the end of the story. So strap in because I'm far from finished. This takes us to a man of the name Carl Hoffman, who in 2014 went back into everything related to this case in order to write a book and better examine the full story. Between Carl's personal expeditions and a private investigator hired by the Rockefeller family, it puts together a pretty convincing picture of what happened. And what's even more damning is the Dutch government had classified files about what happened to Michael, but wouldn't let anyone else read them, including the Rockefeller family. And why would the Dutch government have classified documents about this case? And this is because the Dutch government, the governing body of Papua New Guinea, were well aware a member of the richest family in America has just gone missing on an island near a group of known cannibals. Yes, you heard that right. It's even believed the Dutch forces on the ground conducting the search party were told any evidence of Michael met a tragic fate to cover it up. The cannibalism thing isn't an approximation. It was a known fact the Asmat people would commonly eat people for one reason or another. This was a constant argument between the Dutch and the investigators on the island, but the Dutch would persistently say they don't eat people anymore because we made it illegal. We know this is bullshit. The people on the island knew it was bullshit, but it didn't stop them from saying it. We're now going to jump into the private investigator reports about what happened to Michael, and the reason it took over 40 years for these reports to surface is mainly due to cover-ups by the Dutch and trying to retain territory they would have most likely lost if the UN found out they couldn't actually govern the territory of the islands and there's still a tribe of cannibals living there. The testimony from the investigator that was hired by the Rockefeller family directly, the investigator claims he traded 3 human skulls for a boat engine that the locals told him belonged to 3 white men who were killed by the indigenous people of the island. Pushing for more information about who the 3 skulls belonged to, the people on the island were apparently quite open, probably not fully understanding the severity of the situation in saying, "Michael Rockefeller, you remember the famous guy that went missing and the big search party showed up? Yeah, that's him." Although this can't be proven with 100% certainty, when the investigator made it back to the United States, he supposedly gave these skulls to the Rockefellers, while there's no evidence he actually gave them. There is evidence the Rockefeller family gave him $250,000. And if you remember correctly, this is the same amount they offered as reward money for anyone that could find Michael. So following the paper trail, at least it seems they thought the skulls was enough evidence to pay the reward money. Now, for a quick change of scenery, to separate facts from theory. Because from here on out, all the information I'm about to talk about, as much as it's very convincing and comes from reliable sources, we have to call it theory till proven otherwise. There is one story reported by the same investigator that received the skulls from the indigenous tribe. While interviewing an old man, he asked if he knew Michael Rockefeller, to which the elderly gentleman replied, no. So the investigator asked how he got his glasses that closely resembled the ones Michael was wearing when he went missing, and the elderly gentleman responded, "I found them." And sure enough, looking through pictures, these were in fact Michael's glasses. Moving back over to Carl Hoffman, the guy that compiled most of the information publicly available around this case, Carl decided to go back to the island, and shortly after his arrival, Carl's interpreter overheard one of the Asmats say, "Don't tell the white guy about the one we killed." This must have been satisfying for Carl. Imagine studying this case for years. Within 2 steps into the village, someone's like, "Hey, we did it, just so you know." Upon talking to the guy, it seemed common knowledge. Everyone in this village knows they killed Michael Rockefeller. So going from Carl's version of the story of what happened to Michael Rockefeller, and this is also backed by 2 Dutch missionaries that had been living on the island for the past 9 years and very well understood the language, they was pretty convinced they had finally found the truth of what happened on November 19th, 1961. A group of warriors from the village were out looking for food when they noticed something crawling up onto the shore. Initially, they thought it was a crocodile, but in fact, it was Michael Rockefeller, choked up and tired but still breathing after a 12-mile swim to shore. Keep in mind, the villagers are still terrified of these white people that keep appearing on the island in the 1960s, and most of them still believe they are spirits. but after talking between each other and figured out they can still kill him for food. Cover your ears for a minute because this gets graphic. After carrying Michael's body back to the village, they popped open his skull, ate his brain, stripped all of his flesh from his body before cooking and eating it. Used his bones to make spearheads and daggers, drained his blood and threw it all over each other as some kind of ritual. If we have learned anything about the cannibal tribe, is they were certainly not wasteful. Now, a few days after this is when the search began, so this group of people went from not seeing a white guy for hundreds of years to seeing helicopters, boats, tanks, and loads of things they have never seen before and thought it was the spirits punishing them for killing Michael. But that can never officially be written down as it's all hearsay and stories. However given, there was never a trace of body found. This fits perfectly. And now for my favorite theory, because every good story needs a happy ending. Right? In 2008, a documentary director known as Fraser Heston was doing work about the case of Michael Rockefeller while trying to find footage of the island to use as B-roll for his documentary. He came across in a warehouse in England tons and tons of unused video footage from 1969 taken by a research crew that visited the island filming the natives. After watching 10 hours of footage he received from the warehouse, he come across this video that clearly shows 8 years after Michael had disappeared, a white guy on a boat with the indigenous tribe that is near identical match to that of Michael Rockefeller. Let's cut the BS. Who else could this possibly be? And if we remember right back to the very start to Michael's diary, he clearly states he preferred the tribe's way of life compared to his life back at home. And what better ending to the story? Then Michael staying on the island with the indigenous tribe he was so fascinated with to live out the rest of his life. That's a happy ending. Please leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching.